Welcome to our Backyard Brothers podcast and the final week of the NFL preview. We've done 6 of the 8 divisions. We're covering the NFC South and the AFC North today. So we're going to jump right in. And can you see my screen? Okay, I see a nod with a yawn, but I see it. So, okay, and we're starting today with me. I'm the lead for the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are going through a lot of change. Last year, they finished 7-10, 26th in points. They did finish 9th in rushing yards, but all of these numbers were kind of too low for the administration to continue the way it was. Quarterback play was a big reason why the Falcons didn't succeed last year. So they convinced Kirk Cousins to come play for the Falcons on a big 4-year deal worth more than $150 million. Cousins is a great quarterback. He's never really been elite, but he will put up big numbers. He will win you games. His playoff play is still a little unspectacular at this point. His contract is structured in such a way that it is front-loaded in the first 2 years, meaning they can get out of his contract after 2025. Bijan Robinson had a very solid rookie year. He rushed for 976 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was somewhat underused in that offense last year. Drake London was their best receiver. He had 69 catches, almost 1,000 yards, but just 2 touchdowns. Kyle Pitts is a big difference maker when he stays healthy. Last year, that was most of the season, but he can still be more impactful. They added Darnell Mooney from the Bears and Rondale Moore from the Cardinals to help the receivers room. Mooney is a deep threat. Moore does really well in the slot, intermediate routes. This is actually one of the more underrated offensive lines in the league. Chris Lindstrom has been an all-pro each of the last 2 seasons at right guard, while Jake Matthews is always on the cusp of being an all-pro at left tackle. Matthew Bergeron had a solid rookie season at left guard. Drew Dahlman is solid at center. Caleb McGarry might be the weak link on the line, but he's improved in the last couple of seasons as well. Grady Jarrett isn't the same game wrecker that he used to be. He's used in rotational ways, but he can still play well if he's not needing to be an every down lineman. David Onyemata had 50 tackles and 4 sacks. Arnold Ebiketie had 6 sacks off the right edge. They love what they have in the middle. Troy Anderson was supposed to be the starter last year, but he got hurt in the second game of the year. That let Caden Ellis and Nate Landman both prove that they have solid futures. They each had over 110 tackles, a couple of big plays. They'll share that spot with Anderson this year. So those 3 in the middle, really. And they drafted Braylon Trice out of Washington in the 3rd round. He had 16 sacks over the last 2 seasons. Jesse Bates.
Have 3 middle linebackers?
They don't always play at the same time. But if you do see them at the same time, then they'll be left, middle, right. But technically, they're all middle linebackers by position. But they'll sometimes play 3-4, and they'll sometimes bring Troy Anderson off the bench as well. Have them all 3 at the same time. I doubt you'll see these 3 at the same time on the field. But these are kind of their starters, and 3 of them happen to be middle linebackers by position. So it's a kind of weird situation, but Jesse Bates was the best player on this team last year. 132 tackles, 6 interceptions, including a pick 6. He continues to be one of the best safeties in the league. AJ Terrell is a solid cornerback 1, but the other 2 positions are kind of up in the air. Clark Phillips had a solid end of the regular season, but so he's kind of the leading candidate to be the other starting corner, but his size makes him better in the slot if they can find a better outside corner. DeMarco Hellum has played well enough at the end of the season as well to supplant the other guy at strong safety. The Falcons made the most surprising move of the early draft by taking Michael Penix with their first pick, 8th overall. Most thought that the Falcons would either take a receiver or an edge rusher with that pick, but it shows how much they really thought of that lefty from Washington, who had 8,734 passing yards over the last 2 seasons, the most in college football by a huge margin. So his injury history is concerning, but the Falcons love the idea of having Penix sit and learn behind Cousins for 2 years and then become the face of the franchise at that point. They have solid depth at running back with Tyler Algier, more of a thunder to Bijan Robinson's lightning, and they drafted Jace McClellan out of Alabama in the 6th round. Ray McLeod is the new kick returner from San Francisco. They also brought Casey Washington over from Illinois, who had more than 200 receiving yards in the bowl game. The Falcons' second pick was Rook or Horhoro. Say that one time fast. It's hard enough. He had 9.5 sacks as a defensive tackle for the Tigers. He could help rotate with that other Clemson alum, Grady Jarrett. Brandon Dorlers was taken from Oregon in the 4th round. Zion Logue out of Georgia in the 6th to further beef up that defensive line. J.D. Bertrand was a 5th round pick out of Notre Dame. He had 76 tackles last year, led the Irish. Richie Grant had 103 tackles last year, but he really struggled down the stretch, especially with a lot of blown coverages. So he lost his starting job. Antonio Hamilton was brought over from the Cardinals to see if he could be that other outside corner spot. Pushing Phillips to that slot corner role is what the hope is for him. Younghoe Koo was most reliable at kicker, and Bradley Pinion was an all-pro at punter. The Falcons are starting over at the top with Raheem Morris being given a second chance as head coach. He was the head coach of the Buccaneers from 2009 to 11, but he struggled. Most recently, he was the Rams defensive coordinator, won a Super Bowl with them. He was also the interim head coach in Atlanta when Dan Quinn was fired. So he told the press that he feels like he's going back home. Zach Robinson was brought over from the Rams. He was the quarterback's coach there. And Jimmy Lake was the head coach of Washington for 2 years before he was fired for multiple allegations of violence against players. So take that how you will, but he's the defensive coordinator now in Atlanta. So I'm going to stop share and share the other one. Yancey, you're up first for the Falcons.
Yeah, so can the Falcons put enough talent together to get 9 or more wins this year, or is it deeper into the playoffs?
Do you have any analysis to throw in there with your question, or is that it?
I would say that if we can answer that question, that would be kind of my analysis.
Okay.
For the most part, like, you know what I mean? If we get a broad answer of that, I don't think that I believe they get more than 9 wins or into the playoffs. I don't think that Cousins will play enough to be that big talent factor that they need to hinge on. But I think with everybody else's answers and questions down here, it will give me a good summary.
Yeah, so my answer to that is, looking at their roster, it's not super impressive, but it's not bad either. I like some of the talent they have, especially with that big, was it Pitts? He's still there. And Bijan Robinson, Kirk Cousins, of course, and great on defense. And so they have a lot of good pieces. And I think what I didn't mention here in my answer that I wrote down is they're in the easiest division to win 9 games in. And so I think that everything is set up for them to have a successful season. The problems is that everybody's new, including the coach.
What are you going to read that? You're trying to get all your
in quickly. And if they do, then yeah, I think 9 wins is absolutely feasible.
Yep. Cody?
So my question was, Raheem Morris is 21-38 as a head coach. What does he need to do differently this time to get more wins than losses? And my analysis with that was, I was just thinking about, I remember when Raheem Morris was hired as we just talked about, was it the Rams head coach? Is that where he was at?
Buccaneers.
Oh, I don't know why I went there. Bucks, and 21-38. He did okay, but not great, not good enough to stick around. So obviously the Falcons saw something. They wanted to try it again. So that's kind of my thought process.
Okay. And Pam answered that saying that Kirk Cousins should help. He's a good fit in Atlanta. He's got a good roster. She's not entirely sure what the roster was like during previous head coaching stints, but this one looks promising. For me, I'm along the same lines as Dustin. This is the weakest division in the NFL. And it's not close. It's by far the weakest division. And so any team has a chance to win this division unless you're the Carolina Panthers, who we'll talk about in a second. But So I kind of phrased my question a little bit differently. I said, tell me why the Falcons are not set up for the best position in the NFC South for the next half decade or more, with Kirk Cousins leading the offense for 2 years, Michael Penix kind of waiting to take over, learning how to do that. We've talked about that many times over how you want to play a rookie quarterback. The best way to do it is to let him sit for at least 1, maybe 2 years and learn. And this is what it's set up to do right now. And so I want to know why they shouldn't be the favorite to win this division each of the next 5 to 6 years, including this one right now. The backyard dad said it comes down to the competition in the division and not really themselves. He says they're set up for success, but probably not greatness. So it depends what everyone else does. And again, this division, you can see all teams hanging around 7 to 9 wins each. So, any other thoughts about the Falcons? Okay. Let's stop sharing this one and we're moving over to Dustin. Dustin, you were chosen as Carolina because you were born in North Carolina. That's why. So.
Or was. I spent all of about 6 months there.
Right.
So which is, I guess Bryce Young has spent more time there, so he's doing all right. And we were about the same size. All right, so Carolina Panthers, they obviously were the worst team in the league last season, and they're just bad at just about everything. And so it's going to be an interesting season. So let's get into them. So first of all, as we mentioned, Bryce Young, number 1 overall pick, and he had a pretty bad year. But obviously he wasn't quite set up as your number 1 overall pick. So starting at the running back,
you're cutting out quite a bit. Is there anything you can do with your mic? I'm not sure if it's your Wi-Fi or if it's your mic.
Are you able to hear me any better or clearer?
You're a lot better now, yeah.
Okay. So Chuba Hubbard, obviously a bright spot. Adam Thielen's been around for a long time. They expected him to be greater than he was, than he has been. Some injuries have hurt that. I think the biggest thing is they've brought over Deontay Johnson, who was great in Pittsburgh, and try to help beef up those weapons for Bryce Young to go over to. And then they just drafted? Yeah, Tommy Tremble, or no, he's been around. Sorry. He's been
Xavier
around.
Legette. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's been around. But yeah, they're helping to try to boost this positions, these skill positions. The line last year was bad. If you recognize any of the names here, it's because you're a Seattle fan, I guess, and Damian Lewis. So Cody, that's a call out to you. You're probably the only one who recognizes any of these names. So they do not have a lot of great talent here on the line. And so this is something they're trying to plug a hole here.
Well, a couple of things, like it's
But
like
this is
they talk
probably
about they sure like to get away.
on the defensive line. Obviously, they got Derek Brown, one of the best players on the team, had over 100 tackles last year, which is your defensive end is getting 100 tackles. That's rough. But he's the best player. And then they brought in Ashawn Robinson. Linebackers. They've got a lot of linebackers. You're going to go more than 3-4. One of the biggest ones is Shaq Thompson coming over here, and then they got Jadeveon Clowney, big name veteran coming over from Baltimore, trying to give them some experience there. Over into the secondaries. Over into the secondary. Last year they had a problem with the secondary. They gave up a lot of yards. And so they brought in Jordan Fuller to try to help with the safety spot, and then just going to try try to continue to develop there in the cornerbacks positions. But this is still going to be a weak point for the Falcons is the secondary. For the offensive depth, the only couple names that I'll point out is Andy Dalton, veteran presence there, trying to help tutor Bryce Young, and then Miles Sanders, also a veteran, there to help Chuba Hubbard with some of that. And then looks like you got Emir Smith-Marset. That purple means all-pro, right? So had a good year and going to be able to help with the depth there. For defensive depth, no big names here. They've got a couple of draft picks with Jaden Crummy and DJ Wunham. That's a good name. And Trevin Wallace. And so a lot of youth here in the depth, which we all know their defense is weak. And so having all this youth here doesn't make it any stronger.
I will say that they finished 4th in the league against the run last year. So their defense, rush defense, was actually really good. Everything else was bad, but that was the only thing to build on. So,
also one other thing as well is for the offensive depth, Rashad Penny actually just retired, so he's no longer an option.
Okay, and they also drafted Jonathan Brooks. He was the first running back off the board. So,
good. All right, for special teams, Eddie Pinheiro had a pretty good year last year. Unfortunately, field goals and extra points having kind of the same percentage there is not what you want. You want to make sure you capitalize on those extra points. Field goals, those are just hopefuls there. But you got a great punter there. Johnny Hecker's been around for a long time. So here we are, head coach Dave Canales, which the Panthers have been through, 4 head coaches in 5 years. So it seems like the owner doesn't understand expectations. So we'll see what he can do with his 1 year on the Panthers, and if he can get this team together, which, as looking at this roster, is going to be definitely a struggle. He brought over a new offensive coordinator from Tampa Bay. And we're able to keep the defensive coordinator, which we just said was the only bright spot for this team there.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this one and share the other. And I'll scroll through the Panthers. Okay, and it's Dustin, there you go.
All right, so starting with Panthers questions. Marv asks, does anybody on this team have more pressure on them than Bryce Young?
And I said, absolutely not. Obviously, a former number 1 overall pick, even though he struggled last year and it wasn't all his fault, he has a lot of pressure to prove that last year's complete disaster has more to do with the lack of talent around him than any lack of talent of his own. So he has to really prove that he can have a much better season this year. Even though the talent isn't really that much better than it was last year, he has to prove that he can be a little bit better than he was last year, even with a lack of talent for the second straight year.
Good. Next question from Pam. We saw some changes happen in the offseason. Which ones will have the greatest effect in getting them to at least double, if not triple, their wins from last season?
Yeah, I think one name that sticks out for me is Clowney. He could be a huge influence on this team as long as there's still tread on the tires. That's a huge if there. And I mean, it's literally the one name that stuck out to me. As there's some young guys who could perform and surprise me later on. But really, that's the only guy that I saw that you would look to and hope for veteran leadership.
Yeah, and we didn't mention his name going through the slide, but it is important to recognize that Jadeveon Clowney and I can't remember the other guy that they brought in on the other edge. I think it was Caleb Chason from Jacksonville. They brought those two guys in to replace Brian Burns, who was the best edge rusher for the Panthers and one of the best in the league, who went to New York. And so you're replacing a really good player with a guy who hasn't proven a lot yet and a guy who may be past his prime. And so hoping that can work.
I don't think it was the right strategy, to be honest, with the amount of struggles that they've had. It's just going to be rough the next couple of years for them, in my opinion.
Yeah, comparing them to the Falcons, obviously same division. Falcons, we can see, the sun rising. We can see the hope that they have. Panthers, it's hard to see that. Leading into my question then, what does the defense need to do to keep the offense in contention for winning some games?
My answer to that is 4 stops and turnovers. Stop letting them score. The more 3rd and 4th down stops the defense gets, the more opportunity the offense has to score. But obviously, that's just kind of how football works. So that's just every team, not just necessarily the Panthers. So, but I do think, the better the defense can be, obviously, the more opportunity the offense has to capitalize. So, and with a roster that is lacking a little bit, has some good offensive talent, but the defense is what shined last year. I would say, while trying to focus on the offense, probably a lot more of the focus needs to be on the defense to give that offense the opportunity.
And Dustin, you mentioned, I think this is coach number 4 in the last 5 years for Carolina. David Tepper is the owner, and he's very temperamental. He doesn't like losing, and he throws coaches out the window, and as well as throwing food out the window at fans. By the way, if you remember last year, he was at a road game, and fans were booing the Panthers, and he opened the window and threw food down at the opposing fans. So he's not the best role model. So.
Man, food at those games, your burger and fries is going to cost you like $25. I guess if you're like a multimillionaire, you can afford to throw food. But if somebody's throwing food, I'm going to be grateful for the free food.
Yeah, I'm either eating that or grabbing my receipt up and getting that $20 out of that owner's pocket.
Yeah.
I was thinking that, I would hate that pressure to be hired by the Panthers, like with that mentality, if you're Dave Canales, what kind of boss, what owner you have, and knowing what you have to work with, what do you do? Like that's got to be some seriously sucky work environment.
It's like working for Jimmy John's. Look it up.
Oh man, it's also. So if you watch the press conference, and I bet I'm the only one here that did, but the press conference with Dave Canales as his head coach introductory press conference, that was like the first question asked by the media is you're coming into a situation where you're the 5th coach in 4 years or 4th coach in 5 years or whatever. And what are you going? And he says, I'm not built like that. I don't think that way. I go in knowing that I'm going to do the best that I can do, and I can't control anything else that happens. And I'm excited about the opportunity I have here, and let's get to work. And that was he says, blinders on. I don't think about that stuff. I don't know. That's probably for the media only. I bet he's worried sick.
Yeah, I'd be shaking in my boots having to take over this dumpster fire if I was him.
Okay. Moving on to the Saints. I think we're over at Cody.
All right. I'm just curious. Why did I get the Saints? I'm just curious. Just because?
Because, well, really, the only one was Dustin with the Panthers, and then I was assigning based on order, like who had not got a number 1 in the division first or number 4 in the division. For example, Yancey had never gone last in the division, and so that's why he got the Buccaneers. So, and then just assigning things. I think I assigned myself the Falcons because I picked the Falcons to win the division, and I assigned you the Saints because I think you picked the Saints to win the division. So,
okay.
Or no, you're the Falcons.
I don't know what I said,
Cody,
but anyway.
I thought you were a Saints fan, like when you were younger or something. I thought you really liked the Saints when you were younger.
I did like the Saints back when colors were, the colors of the team were cooler. Probably, I don't know. Like I remember when I was, I think a freshman in high school or something. The Tigers were black and gold, and so I was like, I like the Saints because they're black and gold or something. I don't know. There's no reason to like them probably, but we'll move forward. So the 2023 record for the Saints were 9-8. They were second in NFC South. They were numbers wise, they're doing pretty good. So they're 9th offensively, 8th defensively as far as points per game go. And then 14th and 13th, so a little bit middle of the pack there. 6th in total turnovers, which is really good. They had 18 total turnovers. And then Derek Carr, he had a statistically good season, nearly 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. But he's not. I mean, like I said, on paper it looks really good, but they didn't get. They didn't get in the playoffs. They didn't get very far. So it doesn't really matter when you're not capitalizing. The offensive weapons, Chris Olave, we'll start there. He had over 1,100 yards, 5 touchdowns. He's probably the star of the team right now. Really good receiver. Alvin Kamara had a down year. Comparatively with his previous years. However, I'm aware that they're kind of focusing more on the pass last year than they had been previously, which to me still is no reason for him not being as involved as he could have been, because he's probably the best pass catching running back in the league. Jamal Williams, not too well. There wasn't involved very, very much. So it'd be good to see him get some more touches, especially as a change of pace kind of back, third down, goal line, things like that. Rashid Shaheed was a All-Pro return man, and then Jawan Johnson is actually a name that I'm not very familiar with. So we got the line here, Eric McCoy. I believe that's Pro Bowl, the yellow, right? Okay, so we got Pro Bowler Eric McCoy there in the middle, 17 starts. He's a good center. Cesar Ruiz is also a pretty good right guard. They got. Let's see if I can get this right. Talius Fuanga, I think is probably the best way to say it. First round pick out of Oregon State. They're going to try to use him to anchor the left tackle spot.
Yeah, last year Trevor Penning started at left tackle, and he was a complete disaster. And so they drafted Talius Fuanga in the first round to replace him. And that left side of the line is going to be an issue. Right side is pretty good.
And Trevor Penning was a rookie last year, wasn't he?
I think it was his second year.
Okay.
And he just they tried moving him around. They tried him at left guard. He was even worse. They tried him over at right tackle. He wasn't any better. So he's now a backup.
All right. Okay. Defensive line here. We got Chase Young, who's just moving around like crazy. Where was he? I don't even know where he was the last few years. I know at one point he was with the Niners and Washington, I think is where he was drafted. But
last year he split time with Washington and San Francisco last year. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So he's making his rounds now. I think he's not really living up to his second overall pick status. He's doing okay, but he's not the anchor, if you will. Brian Brzee, he is. I thought he was a rookie this year, was he not? I thought he was the last year.
He was the first pick last year.
Okay, so but he did pretty good last year. 4.5 sacks. Definitely can do a little bit better, especially being that nose tackle spot. And then Carl Granderson with 8.5 sacks, a great right hand there. Demario Davis is probably the best player on the defense, if not the team right now. 6.5 sacks as a middle linebacker, 121 tackles. He's been doing great. I think he's in his 30s. He's out there, but he's still going strong. Willie Gay, good addition from Kansas City. Just try to help out that linebacker unit as well. And then Pete Werner over there with doing some okay numbers, but need to do a little better. And then we got our secondary, Marshawn Lattimore, and Tyrann Mathieu, some very well-known names. Tyrann Mathieu with 4 interceptions, 1 touchdown as well. I assume was probably either a pick 6 or a fumble recovery, but either way, he is a great piece on the secondary there. Other than that, the other players it's a really good secondary. You can see 1 sack, 2 interceptions, another sack, 4 interceptions. So they've got a very good secondary.
Yep, I agree.
And then offensive depth, we have Taysom Hill listed at quarterback, but we all know he's not really quarterback. He's kind of everything. I'm not sure if this is appropriate or not, but I'm going to say he's kind of like a big version of Deebo Samuel for the Saints. He just kind of does everything for them, but maybe even a little bit more. No one really else like him. So
I was gonna say I put his numbers differently than everybody else. That's 120 touches, whether that was catching, rushing, throwing. 120 touches, 775 yards, and 7 touchdowns. No one does what he does in the NFL. Yeah.
Right. And they drafted Spencer Rattler out of South Carolina in the 5th round. He's really the backup for Derek Carr. Other than that, I just got to mention Bub Means because that's a weird name. And then there's Trevor Penning right there for you. Other than that, I'm not sure I have anything else for the offensive backup.
It looks like Josiah Azram didn't realize it was picture day.
I was gonna say it looks like a mugshot, like you caught me stealing. Like he just looks mad and not happy to be there wearing a hoodie. I agree with Dustin's comment there.
Yeah.
All right, defensive depth. Got Cameron Jordan. I'm surprised he's still not, he's not a starter anymore because he's a household name at this point. But I'm sure he still gets his play time quite often. And then JT Gray, a All-Pro there, 12 tackles. I'm not sure why he's an All-Pro.
He was an All-Pro special teams specialist.
Okay, gotcha. And then Kool-Aid McKinstry, I have to mention that name as well, 2nd round pick from Alabama.
Yeah, he slipped into the 2nd round. He was supposed to be one of the best corners in the draft, and everyone wants a guy named Kool-Aid.
Mm-hmm. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. All right, we got special teams. Blake Group or Group A. I want to say Group. He looks like he's 19 as well, but he 40 for 40 on extra points, so really good there. 30 to 37. He can do a little bit better on field goals. Lou Headley, 43 average. He can do a little better on punts, and Zach Wood is the long snapper.
Blake Group looks like the pedophile and the molester.
Okay, so with coaching, we got Dennis Allen in his 3rd season, 24-46 record, not doing great. He is definitely on the hot seat. Like we said, the defense is going well, but we got to get, in the playoffs. What I've always said is by the 3rd season, you've got to be making a difference. So this is also when I'd be watching him closely. Clint Kubiak, 1st season as OC, and Joe Woods, 2nd season as DC there.
Okay. I'm going to quit this one and share the document. Work my way through this one and start right with you, Cody.
All right. So my question went actually straight to Taysom Hill. So I wrote, is Taysom Hill essential to this offense? How so? And then I asked, is he replaceable? I was curious about that just because we know how unique he is as a player, but he is not an elite player. And so that was the analysis and the reason for my question. Backyard Dad said, yeah, he is essential. Just having him on the field is worth 5 to 10 points per game. Even if he doesn't get the ball, the defense has to play it differently, allowing another option to get softer defense. And third and 1, 4th and 1 is almost a gimme with Hill. No other player in the league can do all of that. And that's definitely a true point that I didn't really necessarily think that even when he's on the field, he doesn't even have to have the ball. And he's, the defense has to focus on him because of the possibilities. All right, Yancey.
Is there anything here that makes you think the Saints get over 10 wins this year?
And my answer was no, but to be fair, I don't think anyone in this division gets over 10 wins this year. The Saints probably max out at 8 or 9, but that's if everything goes well. I could see them having that Chargers season from last year where they just completely collapse and get 4 or 5 wins. But I don't see them winning the division, and I think they have a new coach next year.
All right, and then Pam asked, is first in the division possible for the Saints? If so, what needs to happen for the Saints or even for everyone else in the division for that to happen?
Yep. the division's wide open. We've mentioned this before when talking about the Falcons, and so anybody can win first because it's really wide open. Because it can be won with as little as 8 or 9 games. I would put Saints in the second or third option to win that, but it's definitely possible given the opportunity they have.
Okay. We'll move on to the last team in this division, the Buccaneers, and Yancey, you're up.
Yeah, the Buccaneers were kind of, I mean, even though they won the division, it looks like their performance was middle of the road at best. 20th in points per game, 7th in or I'm sorry, is that points
7th
per
in
game?
points allowed.
Points allowed. Okay, thank you. And then 23rd respectively in yards per game and allowed. 32nd for rushing in both. And then they were able to squeak out a win against Philadelphia just to lose to Detroit. Moving on. Baker Mayfield, that's Pro Bowl, yeah. Pro Bowl performance, over 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. More impressive than I thought, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, that was the best season of his career by far last year.
Yeah. Rashad White, 272 rushes for 990 yards and 6 touchdowns. Mike Evans looks like the top performer at wide receiver there, with less catches than Chris Goodwin, but more yards and far more touchdowns. So turning those opportunities into points, which is something you like to see. Jalen McMillan, 3rd-round rookie out of Washington. He was fairly impressive in Washington, if I do recall, right? He was pretty good. Cade Otton being the tight end over there, not a lot to talk about. He does look like Tom Brady with a wig on playing tight end, so that's
too.
funny.
Yeah.
I'll mention that.
Yeah,
We got an All-Pro, with the gold here.
Pro Bowl, but yeah.
Pro Bowl, sorry. Tristan Wirfs on the left side there. Cody Mock has a hilarious picture because he does not have front teeth, and that's funny to me. 2 new additions on the line there at the center, a 1st-round rookie, Graham Barton, out of Duke. You don't hear about them being a football school too often. Ben Brinson from New York. And then Luke Godecki, I believe he's actually pretty good and has had success in his career leading up to this point too. Yeah.
Luke Godecki has done well as he moved to right tackle. He struggled at left guard to start his career, but he's done better at right tackle. Have to mention Graham Barton. He was a great player at Duke, but he was a left tackle.
Okay.
They're asking Barton to play center. There's a
position change for the young guy.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Cody Mock looks exactly what I would expect for someone from North Dakota to look like.
That's what you want your North Dakota linemen to look like. You're 100% right about that. They actually come like that. That's how they come packaged when you're born there. Khalija, I'm guessing Cansey. Sounds like you're making fun of my name. 26 tackles, 4 sacks. Not great, not terrible. Vita Vea, 43 tackles, 5.5 sacks. Kind of the same thing, middle of the road performances here from the line. 22 tackles. Those numbers have to come up unless he was injured or something, I'm assuming.
Well, Logan Hall is a bust. He was a 1st-round pick a few years ago, and this is kind of his last chance. He was a bust. Vita Vea is immovable. He doesn't get a lot of sacks or tackles, but no one can push him out. Like, if you remember the playoff game against the Eagles, they tried that brotherly shove. The only player it did not work on the entire NFL is Vita Vea. You can't move him.
So good. Good two clogger. Really good at clogging the 2 gap and stuff like that at the nose.
Yeah, he's the scariest player in the NFL, in my opinion. He's just a monster and will literally eat you.
Yeah, we got to see more out of that young guy on the right side, though, for sure. 22 tackles is not respectable.
Yeah.
Chris Braswell coming out of the second round from Alabama. Levante David, those are good numbers. 134 tackles, 4.5 sacks. Yaya Diaby sounds like a rap name. 38 tackles, 7.5 sacks.
Wasn't that a kid from the Sandlot? Yeah.
Yaya.
That was
I think
the
so. Or was it Goonie? I don't know. I really don't know.
Sorry. I had to take a thing away from my dog. He was cheating.
Looked like you were having a car wreck or something. You're like flying around in front of the camera. All right. Let's see with the secondary. We got Jamel Dean, 61 tackles. Antoine Winfield, another impressive season, 122 tackles, 6 sacks, 3 interceptions. Zion McCullum, 68 tackles. 2 Jets coming over to join them. Jordan Whitehead and Bryce Hall, respectively. So no numbers there.
Yeah, I have to mention Antoine Winfield. He had the most sacks of any defensive back in the NFL last year. 6 sacks is impressive from a defensive back.
For sure, they must be running a lot of safety blitz or something like that. Either way, that is impressive, along with his tackle numbers. Bucky Irving joining them in the 4th round from Oregon as a rookie. Another giant, Sterling Shepard, coming over. Sua Opita from Philly, a rookie from the 6th round, Elijah Klein, coming out of UTEP. Sorry. Devin Culp coming out of Washington, rookie for the 7th round. And then moving through here to Keith Smith from 3rd round from Georgia. Tavarius Thompson coming out of Houston. And then a San Fran linebacker, Randy Gregory. Chase McLaughlin, decent numbers, so you can't hate on that. Fairly accurate. Jake Camaretta, 77 punts, 50 average, decent. Todd Bowles, this is going to be his 3rd season as the head coach. Casey Rogers, again, 3rd season, and then Liam Cohen, his 1st season as the offensive coordinator. So it looks somewhat cohesive. You like to see that those guys are getting, their 3rd season together, going in to the 4th, so that should be good.
Yeah, you have to replace Dave Canales, who's now the head coach at Carolina. Liam Cohen is stepping into his place.
Was he with, it looks like he came from LA, yeah?
Well, 2 years ago, he was with LA. Last year, he actually went to the University of Kentucky.
Interesting.
That's where he was
Okay.
last year, so. Okay, I'm going to share the document. All right, Dustin.
So I think we're a broken record. We got lots of the same question here. So is this division still open enough for the Bucs to win the division again?
I think it's a yes from me, but they have a tough road ahead due to the level of competition in the division, which now reading this, I must have been half-baked whenever I wrote that. There's no competition in this division. I sound like an idiot. So I just want to reprise my answer when I say that, yeah, more than likely.
Okay. My question is, we've seen the bad Baker Mayfield in other moments of his career. We just saw the best Baker Mayfield last year. After seeing him in multiple systems, varying degrees of success or failure, where do you put him in the rankings of current NFL quarterbacks? Like, he could fall anywhere along that line, but I'm curious, where does he fall? Cody, you're muted.
Cody muted.
Sorry about that. Thanks. I said, so I'd say he falls into the top half of the league. I say he's in the top 16. He's not in the top 10, but he can get there. But could he get there is another question. That could be yes, depending on if he breaks out more. I think that he has a potential to be in the top 10, but he's not yet. He has to, I think, do what he did last year 3 more times. And then it shows that he's consistent, which I think is an essential characteristic of a top QB.
Backyard Dad asks, how many of the Buccaneers' first 5 or 6 games do they need to win to keep Baker Mayfield confident enough to win the majority of their games and get back to the playoffs? And Cam's answer there was, out of the first 6 games, game 5 and 6 are going to be the most important, not to mention winnable, because they are divisional. Those wins are going to be more valuable to his confidence than the wins in other games.
And I want to provide context to Dad's question here. When I talked to him on the phone, he was saying that Baker Mayfield is fascinating because when he's confident, he's really good. But when he loses that confidence, that's when you see the bad Baker Mayfield come out. And so he has to remain confident enough. And if he can do that throughout a whole season, he puts up the numbers that he put up last year. So, okay, I'm going to scroll down to our division picks. So not quite there. Here we go. So the only consistency we have is the Panthers are last. All across the board, we all have the Panthers in last. We have the other 3 teams in every order with all of us. So 3 of us, me, Dustin, and Cody. So the 3 of the 4 of us here all have the Falcons winning this division. So Yancey, you're the one different here. Why the Buccaneers?
More talent than the Falcons. Plain and simple.
Okay.
Yeah, more talent. I think that, that's probably weird to say with Kirk Cousins being over on the Falcons now. But if you look at the numbers alone from Baker Mayfield, he had a really good performance, and I'm expecting that to kind of carry over.
Sure. I would say that I'm picking the Falcons for the same reason, that I think they have more talent than any other team in that division. Cody, Dustin, you want to say anything about that?
The fact that Kirk Cousins is there now was something big to me. Like I had said before, I think he's a great quarterback, and that's kind of all the Falcons needed. They needed someone to be a quarterback, so that's what I think.
Let's see. I think Cody and I actually have the same. No, we have a little bit different. Nope, we have the exact same.
Yeah, same.
Dustin, you're a little bit different in that you picked the Saints to be even better than the Buccaneers. Why did the Buccaneers fall so far, in your opinion?
It's neither team here was very good. I think that the Saints, there's kind of a little more opportunity there with some of the weapons that they have. Bucs obviously have some great weapons as well, but they couldn't capitalize on it last year. And so I expect a regression versus an increase.
Okay. All right. We are done with the NFC South, I believe. We're going to move over to the AFC North, and it's back over to me with the Baltimore Ravens. I didn't have any rhyme or reason why I picked the teams that I did in this one. No one has any attachment to any of these teams, so I just went with who hasn't done number 1 or number 2, number 3, number 4 in that order. So I had never gone first other than the last time. So anyway, the Ravens were the best team in the AFC last year. They got the top seed for the conference for the first time in team history. They were really good on offense, 4th in points, but they were the best team in defense. Number 1 in points allowed per game, number 1 in turnovers forced, number 1 in rushing yards on offense as well. They were good all over the place, but especially defense is where they excelled last year. Lamar Jackson just won his 2nd MVP award last year. He threw for 24 touchdowns and 7 picks and is also very impactful on the ground. That's 2 MVPs for him, but still only 1 playoff win, which came last year. So he has to succeed in the playoffs now. I think the Ravens needed help, right? So they brought over Derrick Henry to help in the running game. All of their running backs kept getting injured, and so they brought over Derrick Henry, who's an All-Pro in Tennessee, has been an MVP candidate, has been all of those those things, and so he's going to help that rushing game. Watching Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry together will be very interesting. Zay Flowers was really good as a rookie last year. He's now the number 1 receiver there. Mark Andrews was hurt for half the season. He's usually about an all-pro, Pro Bowl tight end, and so get him for a full season with that offense. It could be really good. Rashad Bateman and Nelson Aguilar are 2 bodies that play receiver. But, not much else. So
Sorry, real quick.
Go ahead.
No, I actually honestly wonder if Derrick Henry decided to try to play linebacker, how good he'd be at it. I honestly wonder, because he has the measurables for it and the speed. So I just wonder if he could.
That boy would be a problem. I'll tell you that. That boy would be a problem.
Yeah. Offensive line is actually in flux, and so it's something to keep your eye on. Ronnie Stanley is usually a Pro Bowl talent, and Tyler Linderbaum was a Pro Bowler last year. Those are the only 2 players that are returning to this line now, so watch out. Ben Cleveland was a draft pick a couple of years ago. He's stepping into that starting right guard after spending the first couple of seasons on the bench. Andrew Voorhees was a draft pick last year. He tore his ACL at the NFL Combine. And so he missed the whole year. The Ravens are really excited about him, and so he's essentially a redshirt rookie. Speaking about a rookie, Roger Rosengarten somehow fell to the second round. He ran the 40 time in 4.92 seconds, the fastest of any offensive lineman in the draft. He also didn't allow a single sack in 2 years. So he's good. So those 5, it'll be interesting to watch those 5 this year. Justin Madubuike had a breakout season. He had 13 sacks last year. And Michael Pierce is a good nose tackle. Roquan Smith was an all-pro last year at middle linebacker, 159 tackles, one of the best middle linebackers in football. Kyle Van Noy joined the team in week 4, set a career high with 9 sacks. He's a pretty important guy off the edge. Odafe Owe, Trenton Simpson are the other 2 guys there. Kyle Hamilton is everywhere. He had 81 tackles, 3 sacks, 4 interceptions, and a touchdown. If you remember that AFC Championship game, he made some crazy plays in that game as well. So he's the real deal. Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Williams are really good players as well. Brandon Stevens plays pretty well on the outside, and they drafted Nate Wiggins with their first pick to play slot corner. Ravens drafted Devin Leary in the 6th round out of Kentucky to be the backup now that Tyler Huntley has moved on. He started for 5 seasons at UK. Keaton Mitchell was really good for about half the season until he tore his ACL. Patrick Ricard is an all-pro fullback. Justice Hill started a lot of the year last year because they didn't have any other running backs. So they also drafted Rasheen Ali out of Marshall, who's a big play threat. He had 7 plays of more than 50 yards last year. That's the most in college football. Drafted Devontae Walker out of North Carolina, and a couple of offensive linemen as well are coming over. Defense, not a whole lot of additions really, other than Adisa Isaac, who was drafted out of Penn State in the 3rd round. And 2 defensive backs, TJ Tampa and Sanusi Kane out of Purdue and Iowa State. Justin Tucker continues to be probably the best kicker in NFL history. He was not quite himself. I mean, most kickers would kill for those kind of numbers. For Justin Tucker, that's a down year, missing 5 kicks. So, but he was still one of the best in the league. John Harbaugh, 17th season now at Baltimore. But you think about it, he's had 16 seasons and just 1 Super Bowl win. So does that start to creep up into people's thoughts? They're always good, and so that's why he's been there for as long as he has. But Todd Monken was great in his 2nd season. Zach Orr takes over for Mike McDonald, who left to be the Seahawks head coach. So I'm going to stop sharing this one, and let's see if we can find the Ravens on the document here. I bet it's right about here. Oh, went too far. Excuse me. Okay, so Pam said it looks like the Ravens don't have any weaknesses. Every team has one. What is the Ravens? I said it's obvious that their biggest weakness is the lack of explosive receivers. They have Zay Jones, who was good last year, but other than him, Mark Andrews was hurt last year. He's usually reliable at tight end. We saw that really hurt them in that loss to the Chiefs in the playoffs, the lack of anyone to catch the ball. So they didn't address it in the offseason at all. They didn't bring over anyone to help in that. So I don't know what they're thinking as far as like Lamar Jackson is good, but you saw last year in that playoff game how much they needed someone to catch the ball for them. And so they still need those guys that can make those winning plays in the receiving game. Yancey.
The Ravens seem to be the best team until playoff time. What is the one thing that will get them over the hump, so to speak?
And Backyard Dad said focus primarily on the running game in the playoffs, including planned quarterback runs. Frustration boiled over last year in the KC game. That made everything worse. Patience can result in long, demoralizing drives with that running game if you continue to stick it out as long as it's working. Last year, the running game didn't work either against the Chiefs. So say what you want about that. Cody.
Okay, so I said, help me to understand how dangerous the pairing of Lamar Jackson and King Henry is. Is this the most dangerous quarterback running back duo in the league, or is this not going to be what people expect?
I'd say it's really not that dangerous at all. I don't think it's going to be what anybody expects because I don't think that they play off of each other. With Derrick Henry, you gotta load up the box in order to stop him because he's so big. With Lamar Jackson, same thing. So the play action isn't going to work. You're not going to be able to get play actions off there. Linebackers are going to stay home to guard the quarterback and will negate Henry's ability to contribute in the pass game. And with the Ravens not having explosive receivers, defense can load the box. And so I don't expect this to be a system that's going to work very well for the Ravens at all.
I like that analysis, Dustin. I think we're tempted to just say two great players, put them together, they're going to be great. And the system has to work for it. And I think it would work really well if Mark Andrews is himself, if the receivers, if they get someone like Zay Flowers to have another good year, but they need help in the receivers room to make sure that the system works the way it's intended. I like that analysis.
Yeah, I think what they need to do is get a lot of those skill players, find one of those, skinny small guys that you can get a lot of cross runs, get to the outside fast to help spread out that defense, and that'll help open up the front for Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson.
Okay. We'll stop share this one and go over here to the Cincinnati Bengals, and Cody, you're up.
All right. So for the Bengals, 2023 record was 9-8, which was fourth in the AFC North, which is kind of funny because we just covered where 9-8 was the best in the NFC South. So we had a very good division here. They were kind of middle of the pack, towards the end of the pack in their stats, though. Especially they were allowing 126 rushing yards per game, which was good for almost last. They were 31st in that, so it was pretty atrocious. Led by Joe Burrow, who, by the way, shaved his head and bleached his hair and looked really horrible.
It was terrible.
Just so you guys know. He was, I don't remember when, but I know he got injured last year at some point, which is why his numbers are down. 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He is a very good quarterback. He's probably even elite when he's healthy, but that's the question is, when is he healthy? That needs to be the focus. For the offensive weapons, Jamar Chase is probably the anchor of the offensive weapons. 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns, 100 receptions. He was a Pro Bowler. He continues to do extremely well, and obviously is a teammate, college teammate of Joe Burrow, so they have that chemistry already going. T. Higgins is there as well. However, they did lose Tyler Boyd, which made them lose that three-headed monster they had. They did gain Zach Moss, which then, of course, that means that they lost Joe Mixon. So Zach Moss did really good in Indianapolis. However, still a drop-off from Joe Mixon, as we can all probably agree on that. And then Mike Gesicki is good, another addition. Offensive line. I mean, look, 17 starts, 17 starts, 17 starts, 17 starts. That's pretty impressive. I'm not sure how or why Joe Burrow got injured, but they're all staying
Because
healthy.
none of these guys were getting hit. They're just letting
Yeah.
it go.
I want to point out that Cordell Volson looks like fat Conor McGregor. Give me your Big Mac.
Well, let me say this, that the Bengals were the only team that had only one starting offensive line combination all of last year. All 5 started 17 games. Jonah Williams is the one that left. And look at the size, by the way. Orlando Brown is 6'8", 345 pounds, and he's the smaller of the 2 tackles.
Jeez.
Those are huge boys at the tackle position.
So they really are. All right. Going to the defensive line, we got Trey Hendrickson, household name at this point. All pro, 17 and a half sacks. I'll say that again, 17 and a half sacks. That's amazing. I'm actually not sure why he hasn't been a, defensive player of the year at this point, but he definitely would deserve that. Sam Hubbard is good. Left end on the opposite side, 6 sacks. Then we have BJ Hill with 4.5 sacks, 2 receptions as well, and the Sheldon Rankins addition from Houston. Linebacker, we got Logan Wilson, pretty good linebacker, 135 tackles, 4 interceptions, 1 sack, and then Jermaine Pratt with 118 tackles. So we have basically a run stuffer unit here, and then 2 sacks and 2 interceptions. The secondary, we have Cam Taylor-Britt with 4 interceptions and 1 touchdown. And then opposite of him was DJ Turner from Michigan. I think he was a rookie last year. 50 tackles and 1 sack. So he had a pretty good rookie year. Jordan Battle also had, I think he was also a rookie last year, wasn't he? Okay.
Very young on the secondary. Yeah.
Yeah. So he also had a very good showing with an interception, 2 sacks, 21 tackles. Mike Hilton, 84 tackles. You guys can just see yourself. They have a very good secondary. Although young, it's still very good. And then Geno Stone, addition from Baltimore.
And Geno Stone had 7 interceptions for the Ravens last year. So.
All right, we got our offensive depth here. Jake Browning, in my opinion, probably one of the better backups in the league. He did pretty good for Joe Burrow while he was down. 12 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, almost 2,000 yards. Let's see here. We have I'm not sure there's really anyone else I want to mention. Anything from you guys?
Nope. They also drafted Amarius Mims. Remember the big tackles? Here's another one, 6'8", 340. So they like their big tackles. So.
Goodness. And then on their defensive depth, they got Miles Murphy, who I believe was a rookie last year. 20 tackles and 3 sacks there. Let's see, we got Von Bell, addition from Carolina. I think he's actually a pretty good safety. And then Daxton Hill, really good corner there. Got 110 tackles, 2 interceptions. Other than that,
Hill will be the starting slot corner. He just didn't fit into the starting lineup that I had put together, but he'll be the starting slot corner. They drafted Chris Jenkins in the 2nd round. He was considered the best run-stopping defensive tackle in the draft out of Michigan, which was the biggest area of need that the Bengals had.
And then special teams, Evan McPherson, 4 for 40 on extra points, 26 of 31. Field goals, he can do a little better on field goals, but he is just as perfect as it gets with field goals. Brad Robbins can do a little bit better on making the punts a little longer. And Cal, what the heck?
Adamitis.
That's the one.
Adamitis.
Yep. Adamitis is their long snapper. Coaching Zach Taylor in his 6th season, which, by the way, I remember, I think it was 2 or 3. We had done this preview and we'd said, what's going to take for him not to be on the hot seat anymore? And I had said something about an amazing season where they have a winning season, and that was the year that Joe Burrow came in. And so he's been able to turn things around thanks to Joe Burrow and a lot of the talent that they've had on that. So he's still there. And then we got Dan Pitcher, first season as OC, and Lou Anarumo as 6th season defensive coordinator. They do have a good defense, so it's a good thing he's sticking around.
Yeah, they had to break up. They had the same guys for 5 years. Brian Callahan is obviously now the Titans head coach, who was the OC here. But Lou Anarumo is going to be a head coach pretty soon. So watch out for that. Okay, going to the. Oh, first I need to show what Cody was referencing here.
So, oh my gosh.
That's
Making me
Joe
feel
Burrow
sick.
with his bleached blonde hair. So, okay. Anyway,
He must have lost a bet. I mean, I hope that's the reason.
Looked like you went to rights at the same time as me. We all did. We all did. I'm guilty of doing that too at one point in time.
yeah, but that was 20 years ago. So I don't know.
Yeah. Fair play. Fair play. Slim
So-
Shady was still popular, but he's back.
Mhm. Okay, so my question: because of injuries, people seem to forget the Bengals were the division's team to beat for the last 3 years. Are they still the favorite in the division? Is the championship window for the Bengals still open? Before Yancey answers, I'm going to say that it's about as open as the Bills right now. It's the same idea that they need to prove to everyone that they can still compete at that level, and I'm not sure they can anymore.
Yeah, I think my answer kind of goes along and agrees with you there. I think that it's closing but not closed this year will be important to see if the slide goes up or down. I believe that the trend either way it goes will last a couple of years though. So if Joe Burrow plays poorly this year, that'll continue for the next couple. But if they all stick together and play well, that'll go well for the next couple of years also.
So my question is, how does Joe Burrow get back to the top tier status quarterback? Is it only his health issues, or is he taking steps back in his game? So some context here is, a couple years ago, he led his team to the Super Bowl, and he was one of the best quarterbacks in the league, top 5 for sure. And it just seems the last couple of seasons that he has been nowhere close to that same status. And so that's what prompts this question.
So to that, Pam says, I think he is still kind of a top tier status. Injuries don't necessarily knock him off of that. I also think that it is a lack of protection around him that makes him appear to be at a lower status or be injured. It has never been Burrow. So I think she's saying it's not his fault that it seems that he might be knocked off, but that he's still at top tier status. And then Backyard Dad said, how many games will Jake Browning start this year in place of Joe Burrow? Is he a starting caliber quarterback? And I said, Jake Browning is only going to start if Joe's injured. I'm not sure if that is what you're hinting at or not, but there is no way he's going to be on the field unless Joe's in the tent. I think Jake Browning is a desperate team starting QB. In other words, he can start, he can make great plays, but he can't lead a team deep into the playoffs. As I had said, I think he's one of the better backups in the league, but he is a backup. He is a backup for a reason, and he's not going to be the one to lead this team to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. We got 2 more teams left. Yancey, you are our Browns representative.
Woo. They actually weren't terrible last year. 11-6 record, boasting the second place slot in the AFC North. 10th in points per game, 13th in points allowed. So really kind of middle of the road, and other than yards per game allowed, they were in first place there. I apologize. Lost the wild card there to Houston. Deshaun Watson had a decent performance, I guess you could say. 100 completions, 1,500 yards, and 7 touchdowns with 4 interceptions. That's kind of abysmal. You need to get in the end zone more than that.
Well, he was hurt about a third of the way through the season, lost for the year.
So. That's a fair excuse.
His masseuse was fired. He couldn't get back.
Oh, snap. Where's Robert Kraft when you need him? Nick Chubb, didn't he have the horrific knee injury,
gruesome
right?
injury, yeah.
Like he kissed his toes at one point. Yeah. That was rough. I think it's really hard to come back from something like that. So 28 rushes with 170 yards is not surprising to me. It's surprising to me that they didn't find a different running back. Amari Cooper, 72 catches, 1,250 yards, 5 touchdowns. That's okay. Jerry Judy's pretty decent. He coming from Denver. Elijah Moore, I think you need to see more out of him. No pun intended. 640 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then the tight end kind of being your main target here. 81 receptions, 800 yards, 6 touchdowns. A good line. We got a Pro Bowler and a All Pro. Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. And then 1 start for Jack Conklin and only 8 for Kedrick Willis, which is kind of concerning to me.
They were both hurt.
Okay, so we'll just have to see if they can stay healthy throughout the year and help protect their quarterback. Zadarius Smith, 27 tackles, 5.5 sacks. You got to get those numbers up. Dalvin Tomlinson, same advice, 28 tackles, 3 sacks. 42 tackles, 14 sacks from Myles Garrett. That's actually quite impressive, though I wish we could get somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 tackles with those numbers. I might be asking too much.
Well, he was the NFL's Defensive Player of the Year last year. And so he was the best defender in the NFL. And it's a lot more than just the numbers. He was also really good at batting down balls. He provided a lot of pressure on quarterbacks. And he was just he was the team leader. He was the best defensive player on the best defensive team. And so
my critiques are very Denzel Washington and Remember the Titans. I only demand perfection. So I'm not looking for anything else. Jeremiah, really hard to say last name. Owuzu Komora. I'm Koramoa.
Mhm.
Something like that. I'll stumble through it.
They call
101
him the
tackles,
Joker.
3.5 sacks, 2 interceptions. That's not bad at all, actually. Devin Bush, coming from Seattle, he's performed fairly well in the last few years, if I'm not mistaken. And then Jordan Hicks coming out of Minnesota. Don't know that I know anything about him to really talk about.
Yeah, they're okay. The Joker here, JOK is what they call him. So the Joker
Nice.
is really good.
Yeah, 101 tackles is impressive. All right, moving on to the secondary. Denzel Ward, 34 tackles, 2 interceptions. Opposite of him is going to be Greg Newsome, 49 tackles, 2 interceptions, 1 touchdown. Juwan Thornhill, why did I say Juwan? Juan Thornhill, 54 tackles. Martin Emerson, 59 tackles, 4 interceptions. And Grant Delpit, 80 tackles, 1.5 sacks, and 1 interception. Man, you don't want your safety having 80 tackles. Jameis Winston is the backup coming out of New Orleans. Donta Foreman coming from Chicago. Naheem Hines coming from Buffalo. Giovanni Ricci coming out of Carolina. Zach Zinter, the 3rd-round rookie from Michigan, coming to play on the line. Jamari Thrash, the 6-foot-tall Louisville rookie, picked in the 5th round. Anybody else jump out for you guys?
Nope.
Scott, I'm just surprised you don't have like 6 quarterbacks here.
Yeah, because they have Tyler Huntley as well. He didn't make my my presentation, but he may win the backup quarterback role over Jameis, but I don't know. So yeah,
they had what, 5 quarterbacks last year?
They started 5 quarterbacks last year. Yeah. So
Jameis Winston has been one of the most depressing, like so good at Florida State, and then came to the NFL like, oh, what is this guy doing? Type of players that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Gonna try to fly through these guys for time. Oh wow, there's a lot of additions here. Quentin Jefferson from New Jersey. Michael Hall coming out of the 2nd round from Ohio State. Jawan Briggs, the rookie for the 7th round, out of Cincinnati. Nathaniel Watson coming from Mississippi State from the 6th round. Miles Harden, rookie in the 7th round, coming out of South Dakota. And Tony Brown out of Alabama from Indiana. Dustin Hopkins only missing 3 field goals and 2 extra points. That's okay. You can't expect more from a Browns kicker. Corey
Bojorquez.
Bojorges. I'm from a small island in Mexico of Oaxaca. Bojorges. 87 punts, 49.4 yards average. We'd like to see that come up a little bit more. Kevin Stefanski. Sounds like somebody's making fun of his name. Stefanski. 37-30 record. That's okay. He went to the Pro Bowl. Yeah.
This is just noticing he was the NFL's Coach of the Year last year.
Oh, Coach of the Year. Okay, well, good for him.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you need to perform well to get that? Hold on. Time out. Why'd he get that award?
Because of the way that the Browns crumpled all around. They had to start 5 quarterbacks. Nick Chubb was injured, the offensive line, and the way that they still were able to come through all of that under his leadership. This is the second time he's won that award in 4 seasons. So he's one of the NFL's best head coaches at this point.
Well, cleaning the bed after you've pooped it doesn't mean you didn't poop it. I'm going to agree to disagree there. I'm moving on.
Okay. Stop this one. Also, Jim Schwartz is the defensive coordinator. They're one of the best defensive minds. So, and they immediately became the best defense in the league with him. So that's an impressive feat too. Oh, I'm first. So going off of what I just said, the Browns had one of the best defenses in the NFL, and they were missing a huge amount of offensive weapons, yet they still made it to the playoffs. So my question is, what is the ceiling for this team if everyone stays healthy?
Yeah, this is an extremely competitive division. I mean, 4 of the best teams in the NFL are in the same division. And so winning the division is an extremely high ceiling. And whatever team does that is, maybe the AFC contender there. But I do think that the Browns have a chance of winning the division. They have all the talent and all the experience there. They got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
Backyard Dad's question was, how many games will they play this season before they give up on Deshaun Watson? To you, Cody.
So I may have misunderstood the question. I'm not sure. But what I just said is the Browns paid somewhere in the ballpark of $260 million for Watson, all guaranteed. So I don't think they're going to be letting him go until they've paid him most of his money. They'd rather pay him that money and not make a deep playoff run than just pull a Broncos and be paying the money without him even on the field. So, I mean, if he's healthy, he's playing. That's just the way it's going to be, even if he's sucking it up, in my opinion. Because again, if he's healthy, they're not going to want to pay him to sit on the bench, especially all that guaranteed money.
And my question to Pam was, do the Browns have enough firepower on both sides of the ball to pull out of the bottom of their division? And her answer was the Browns weren't even last in the division last year. And after an offseason of getting their defense better, I don't see them struggling with being last.
Yeah. Okay, last team, and Dustin, you're up with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right, Pittsburgh Steelers. So again, a decent season last year, 10-7, got them for 3rd. Struggled in points, but decent in defense. I think the Steelers last year was one where their point differential was negative, but they still made the playoffs or something like that.
Yeah, they go 10-7 while losing the point differential by 30 points. So.
Yeah. So in the
figure.
games they lost, they sucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
All right, Mr. Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited, playing now for the Steelers. In fact, he's getting paid about $100 million to not play for the Broncos.
If I could flip that and say he's getting the Broncos are paying him to play for the Steelers. So
yeah.
So, yeah.
But
just want to say I'm throwing my name in the hat for that job. If anybody wants to pay me not to play in the NFL, I'm accepting that offer immediately.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see. Of course, he struggled his last couple years in Seattle, struggled in Denver. So here he is in a new system again, and kind of just be able to see with, a great coach and a good system, if he's able to relax and be able to play to the system. It's going to be the kind of the test of his career. Bright spot on the offense is Najee Harris. Fantastic running back. He's an every down back. He's going to get you lots of carries. Going to get you lots of yards, lots of first downs, lots of yards after contact. George Pickens was a bright spot last year as well, and then they got a great tight end in Pat Freiermuth. There on the offensive line. They got 2 rookies starting on the line. Tony Fatana out of Washington, and Zach Fraser, who's a second-round pick and was a 2-time All-American. So, again, no names here that you don't necessarily recognize, but lots of experience there except for the rookies. There on the defensive line, Cameron Hayward has been one of the better players in the league for 10, 15 years at this point, and going to continue to shore up that defensive line with Larry Ogunjobi and Keanu Benton supporting him. For the linebackers, you got one of the best linebackers in the league, T.J. Watt, with 19 sacks and an interception that I believe, was that a pick 6 that he had there?
I believe it was a fumble recovery, but
yeah.
I don't know.
But this man is a nightmare to quarterbacks. He is fast, he is powerful, he's big, and he gets into the backfield very, very well.
Yeah, and Cody, I think every time someone comes up with 17 and a half sacks, you said that led the NFL, right? No, 19 sacks from TJ Watt led the NFL. So, yeah.
For comparison, they played 17 games, so he's averaging, more than a sack per game.
Yeah, but he only played 15. So
yeah. So almost one and a quarter sacks per game is incredible. And so let's tip our hat to that and hope he has a equally good year. And then Patrick Queen came over from Baltimore, who's also a All-Pro player.
This is probably the best linebacker core in the NFL.
Yeah, Alex Highsmith with 7 sacks, 2 interceptions. He'd be able to both rush the quarterback and play in coverage. And then 100 tackles. Very run stopper there. For the secondary, you got Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's been a household name for a long time. He's a Pro Bowler. He's been a Pro Bowler many years that he's been in the league. Fantastic player. And then brought over a couple new players in Dante Jackson and Deshaun Elliott. And then you got Joey Porter, who's also got great experience there. So here on the offensive depth, so the thing you'll recognize is you got a starting quarterback there as a backup in Justin Fields. And so be interesting to see this quarterback dynamic and what's going to happen to Justin Fields. But it's going to be interesting to see how many plays Justin Fields sees, how many games he actually sees the field, or if he's there strictly to be the backup. And then a whole lot of new people, almost all brought over. I guess some ones that I'll mention is Van Jefferson, Cordarrelle Patterson, was fantastic in Atlanta for a long time, coming over to help support with depth in the running game specifically. For defensive depth, nobody to necessarily mention here. Let's see here. Miles Killebrew was a Pro Bowler last year.
He was an All-Pro special teams specialist.
All-Pro special teams. Okay, thank you. And then they got quite a few rookies here in Logan Lee and Ryan Watts.
Yeah. Have to mention Peyton Wilson out of NC State won the Bronco Nagurski Award as the nation's best linebacker. But he fell to the 3rd round because he can't stay healthy. He has a lot of injuries. But last year he was healthy with NC State and was the best linebacker in the country. So
for special teams, Chris Boswell's been around a long time, is very reliable. Cameron Johnston came over from Houston, and he looks like man, he looks like a creative player that wasn't very happy about it. Mike Tomlin has been around. This is his 18th season, and he's never had a losing season. And so he's future Hall of Famer and is now the most tenured coach in the NFL. Then you got Arthur Smith, who we've talked bad about for a long time before, coming over as the offensive coordinator, and Terrell Austin in his third season.
Okay, let's go to the document. We are done with the presentation for good. Spending the rest of our time over here. Here we go.
All right, so starting out, why did they bring in 2 starting quarterbacks from other teams? Which one do they not trust, or is it both? Prediction for who plays more, Wilson or Fields? And he says, last year, I saw one of these quarterbacks as a very solid starter and one of these as just a fair backup, and I was wrong on both of them. I think that they don't trust Wilson enough. I bet Fields plays more. Confidence is essential, and Wilson got shattered last year. To play well in the league, you have to believe you're God's gift to football. That's that. I think that's a great answer. I think Wilson has struggled with confidence. And Justin Fields, he probably doesn't watch his own tape to realize how much he sucks. So. Then Pam asked the question, what do you think the relationship between Tomlin and Wilson will be like?
Short in time and however far the bench is from the sideline and distance after Wilson has thrown his first 3-pick game.
That made me
I
laugh.
want to say
that.
it's a wonderful answer. I crafted that just to toss my middle finger up to Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Great answer.
So I said Russell Wilson may be the best QB the Steelers have had since Roethlisberger left. With that being said, what is Wilson's ceiling with the Steelers?
Yeah, and I said, first off, it's not much of a bar when you have Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett as the 2 guys after Ben Roethlisberger. So, secondly, I think Wilson is exactly in the same predicament in Pittsburgh that he was in with Denver. It's an average running team and almost no receiving weapons to help him succeed. It's the same situation that he was in with Denver, and so I don't see him any better in Pittsburgh than he was in Denver. It's not really. Russell Wilson was excellent in Seattle when it was a really great running team with a very supportive defense. He has the supportive defense in Pittsburgh now. He has that part down because Steelers defense is really good, but he doesn't have the guys to throw to that he had in his great Seattle days, unless George Pickens is getting better every year. If Roman Wilson is really good as a rookie, this, in my opinion, and I said this last year too, and I was wrong because Mike Tomlin is great, but I'm going to keep saying it until it's right. This is the first losing season for Mike Tomlin. So, okay. Anything else about the Steelers? Okay, let's work our way down to the AFC North. We are very consistent about putting the Ravens winning this division all across the board. The rest is really scattered. It's literally 3 and 3 and 3. So Dustin and I have the Browns in second in this division, while Cody and Yancey have the Bengals. So we're split across the board. Who wants to go first? Why one of us picked the Browns or why 2 of us picked the Browns and 2 of us picked the Bengals?
I'll start with the Browns. I mean, the defense, kind of one of those first things, with Myles Garrett. We've talked about how he has so much more impact. He affects the game by just simply putting on a helmet or maybe taking off somebody else's helmet. But he but yeah, the Browns are great. I think that they're going to get that second spot easily.
Yeah, that was my thought too. I think the Bengals will take. I mean, they finished 4th, so technically they take a step forward to get to 3rd. But I think their window is closing, and I think the Browns have a chance to unseat the Ravens for winning that division. I mean, we all remember how bad the Browns have been. This stop comparing years past to years now. This is a different Browns team. This is a good, very good Browns team. Cody Yancey.
Well, for me, it was an expectation or a prediction that Joe Burrow will be healthy the whole year. And when Joe Burrow is healthy the whole year, you have an elite quarterback at play. And that's when you have that and a good defense, it's hard to lose. I mean, you have to try at that point. And so it's really that. And then Steelers, really it's just Mike Tomlin and then the defense. Mike Tomlin is a fantastic coach. So for that reason, I kind of put them there, and that just ended up putting the Browns in fourth place. And so I think it's going to be one of those things again where the fourth place loser has 9 or 10 wins. So I don't think putting the Browns in last place means they're going to be having a 6 or 7 win season.
Yeah, I think there is a very real situation where all 4 of these teams get in the playoffs. There's a real possibility of that. Cody and Yancey, you both had the Browns in last place. Cody just talked about it. Yancey, anything you want to mention?
Yeah, at the end of the day, for me, the Browns are the Browns, dude. They're not going to be good for a long time, if ever. I used to think that about the Bengals, but they at least have some success and talent on both sides of the ball. The Steelers are cursed because Ben Rapesburger. So I put them just above the Browns because get a real name and mascot. Until then, I won't support you. So that's kind of how I felt about it. It's not really rationale based. I just don't like the Browns. I think they suck. So they'll end up in fourth.
All right. So looking at our playoff predictions, this is kind of hard to read and understand, but so if you just look at the winners, Cody has the Lions, Cowboys, Eagles, Dustin, Lions, Cowboys, Packers, Dad, Cowboys, Lions, Saints. We see a theme here. The Cowboys and Lions, pretty much. Pam has a little bit different. I have the Eagles and Lions and Packers, and Yancey has the Eagles, Lions, and Rams. It's all pretty a couple teams here and there that are a little bit different, but pretty much we're all expecting a combination of Lions, Eagles, Rams, Cowboys. Some of those 4 teams are winning playoff game. Some odd ones that I think. Let's see if there's any. Dad, our backyard dad, is the only one that has the Saints in the playoffs out of all of us, and even winning a playoff game. He hasn't beaten the Eagles. So other than that, there's not a whole lot of differences in here.
I do like that we all have the Lions are in there. I mean, that's the one team that everyone has and winning one.
Yeah.
They looked really good last year. I don't think the Lions are ever that good, but they were impressive to me last year.
Yeah. AFC wild card is a little bit different. There's some variance here. Cody has the Jets. We all have the Jets playing, but Cody has the Jets winning a playoff game. Most of us have the Texans in there. A lot of us have us winning. Ravens, Chargers in a couple spots. Cody and me. Chiefs in a few spots. Bengals in 1 for Pam. Yancey has them playing but losing to the Dolphins. I mean, there's a Jaguars here. There's only 1 Jaguars in this whole area, Dustin. You have the Jaguars playing and losing to the Browns. I have the Browns playing and losing to the Texans. So the Browns show up twice in those. Anything we want to talk about here? It's again, there's common themes here.
It's also only 1 Colts in there, and that was Yancey. I'm assuming it's just bias.
Loyalty, baby. Cut me, I bleed blue.
Okay. Divisional round in the NFC. It's pretty clear. 49ers are in every single one of them, winning every single divisional round game in the NFC for all of us. Every single one of us has the 49ers going to the NFC Championship game. And we all have them playing a combination of either the Lions, Cowboys, or Eagles. And that's probably fair, right? Those are the 4 best teams in the NFC. There's no question. It's 49ers, Eagles, Cowboys, Lions. Those are the 4. AFC is a little more varied. We have the Ravens in 5 of the 6 spots. We have the Chiefs in 2, the Dolphins in 1, the Bills in 1, and the Texans in 2. So a lot more varied.
Texans in 3.
3. Yeah. So a lot more varied. Anything anyone wants to say here?
I'm a Dolphins fan. I've said that, from the beginning, at least for Dolphins making it far this year. I think they have the most stacked offense in the league.
Yeah. Okay, NFC Championship game. Cody and Yancey are the only ones that don't have the 49ers going to the Super Bowl. So Cody has the Lions beating them in San Francisco. Yancey has the Eagles beating them in San Francisco. The rest of us have the 49ers winning. And so pretty clear. Again, the NFC is pretty easy to pick this year based on who's going. But Cody, Yancey, we can all say something here. I try to hold back my bias as much as I can as a 49ers fan, but I think that they're clearly the best team in the NFL at this point. So
I think for me, I tried also not having any bias in there as well, but there may have been a little bias. But in all honesty, the Lions only got better. They were really, really good last year, and we saw them in the championship game. It was against the 49ers, I think, wasn't it? And it was a close game. And and Dan Campbell's balls are only going to get bigger, and so it's just, it's just the way I see it is it's going to be a good game, but this time it's going to go on the Lions. And that's just the way I see it.
Dustin, are you going to say anything?
I think the Eagles are just going to have some good stuff in place, and they that thumb injury really affected Hurts, and I think barring that kind of injury, they would have played better into the playoff. Into the playoffs, sorry.
Dustin, anything?
Nah, nothing to add.
Okay. AFC Championship. We have Texans, Bills, Ravens, Dolphins, Chiefs. We have in 6 of the games we have 5 different winners. The only repeat is Yancey and I both have the Ravens winning that AFC Championship game. So we have a lot of variance here. Anything that Dustin, you mentioned the Dolphins. You have the Dolphins playing in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
I think it's interesting how Scott and I, you and I both have exact same matchup, but we have 2 different winners.
Yeah, and Cody, I can't not believe that that your love of the Lions and Texans led to you picking them to win to go to the Super Bowl.
There's definitely a hope there for a Lions Texans Super Bowl, but it's also I also can see it's possible.
Sure. Okay, Super Bowl. 4 of us have the 49ers winning the Super Bowl, including Dustin and I. Cody has the Lions beating the Texans, and Yancey has the Bird Bowl, Ravens over the Eagles. So anything anyone wants to say here?
Cody, I just want to hear you talk about, CJ Stroud had a fantastic season last year, but how do you see them getting to the Super Bowl? Like, how do you see him being that good of a team?
They are probably the number 1 team who improved the most over the offseason, and they had an amazing season, right? No, like a lot of people didn't expect it. And we could pull up all the additions they have. They got a lot of additions, defensive and offensively, and so it's an expectation of mine that they're going to continue to play as well as they did rather than drop off. And if that's the case, if they play as well as they did with the new pieces they have, it's themselves to stop themselves at that point. No one else is going to stop them.
Yeah. And looking at these, this would be the Lions' first ever Super Bowl appearance and first ever win. This would be the 49ers' first win since 1995. So they've been there a lot, but they haven't won in a long time. And this would be the Ravens' first championship since 2012. And Pam has a rematch. Chiefs and Niners going the Niners' way. So no one, interestingly enough, has the Chiefs actually three-peating. So
good.
So, awards predictions. Just to look at this for a second. MVPs. I'll admit a bias came in this one. Christian McCaffrey. Usually, it's a quarterback award. I hate that. I hate that it's only a quarterback award, and so I wanted to pick the best non-quarterback to win that award, and that would be Christian McCaffrey this year. Everyone else obviously has a quarterback, but everyone else has a different quarterback. Cody has Jared Goff of the Lions. Dustin has Tua. Backyard Dad has Josh Allen. Pam has CJ Stroud. Yancey has Lamar Jackson winning back-to-back MVPs. There's Offensive Player of the Year here. Defensive Player of the Year is different across the board as well, from Chris Jones to Myles Garrett to Nick Bosa, Trey Hendrickson, Aiden Hutchinson, Max Crosby. Offensive Rookie of the Year mostly are Marvin Harrison, 4 of them. Dustin has Michael Penix playing for the Falcons. So,
Yep.
Defensive Rookie of the Year is different across, or 2 Byron Murphys here. Dustin and Pam both have Byron Murphy for the Seahawks. Comeback Player of the Year, 1, 2, 3, 4 of us have Aaron Rodgers winning that award. 1 has Deshaun Watson and 1 has OBJ. Coach of the Year, 1 with Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDonald in his first year with the Seahawks, Dan Campbell, D'Amico Ryans, Jim Harbaugh, and on Andy Reid. So different ones there too. So anything else anyone wants to say?
I think we did it.
I certainly hope that Dustin and Pam are right about Byron Murphy. That would be cool.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll check in at various times throughout the season about where we are, how the NFL season is going, and things like that. The NFL season officially kicks off in 3 weeks, I believe. September 5th, I think. Yeah, the night of September 5th. So 3 weeks from tonight, the NFL season kicks off in Kansas City. Next week, we'll be talking about college football. We talked about it a month ago when Dustin wasn't here. We covered 2 divisions. Next week, we'll cover the rest of them, the 2 big divisions, and then very quickly breeze through the minor divisions. So anything else from anybody?
I think that if we can go back up to the Super Bowl real quick, I want to make sure okay, yeah. So I'd say that because Yancey and mine predictions are vastly different from everyone else's, if either of us are correct, everyone else owes us like a gift card.
Look at Cody go.
That's what I'd say.
Well, we'll definitely look at the playoff predictions and who's the most correct. Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, everyone. Thanks for a good call. We'll talk next week, college football. Okay.
Word.
Bye, everyone.